Hey guys, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install the MORryde suspension upgrade kit with 2 1/4 inch shackle straps here on our 2018 Shasta Phoenix Fifth Wheel trailer. So the MORryde suspension upgrade kit is going to come with much thicker shackle straps than your factory shackle straps are going to be, which in turn is going to make them last a lot longer. You're not going to get all this play that you might have with your factory straps, and the wet bolts that are going to come with this kit are going to have a Zerk fitting on them that's going to allow you to easily grease them up so that your suspension moves a lot more freely and kind of rolls with all of the bumps in the road versus binding up like your typical suspension could and causing more stress on your trailer's frame. What that means also is it's going to put less stress on the frame of your trailer as you're hitting those bumps, and it absorbs up through your leaf springs into your equalizer and then into your frame. That can end up causing damage over time. So replacing your shackle bolts with wet bolts that can kind of slide around a little bit easier and can be lubricated really easy, it's just going to give you an overall better ride quality and make sure that your shackle straps and your whole suspension system are just going to last a lot longer. So as you can notice, the shackle straps themselves are much beefier than the previous ones. As you can see, the suspension was getting bound up just because it wasn't lubricated properly, and then it was just sitting there stuck against the shackle strap, and it was just pulling the bolt and actually ripping this metal out, which if both of these failed, you could have your whole axle drop as you're going down the highway, which isn't going to be safe. So that's why swapping out your axle strap with one that's a lot thicker, like our MORryde one here today, which is a 1/2 inch thick, versus this, which is probably only maybe a 1/4 inch, if that. So overall, it's just going to give you a much better peace of mind knowing that your trailer suspension is going to be how it needs to be. As far as installation goes, it is fairly simple. It may take a little bit of extra time just to do everything correctly. You are going to need a 11/16 and a 13/16 socket, as well as a couple of jacks, and also you're going to need to lift your trailer up. So just make sure that you take the extra time to safely lift your trailer and lift your axles. That way you don't have any issues as you're doing the installation. So to begin our installation, we're going to want to first break all of our lug nuts loose. So if you already have a hammer drill, you can go ahead and just lift up your trailer and get the axles off the ground. Or if you don't, then you can go ahead and break those loose first. I have a hammer drill right now, and I've already lifted up our trailer and have it set safely with some jacks. So I'm going to go ahead and take my drill, and I'm going to hammer off these lug nuts. I'm going to go ahead and put my foot up against the wheel, otherwise we're going to have it spinning. Now with our lug nuts off, we can go ahead and remove our wheels. So I've already got my lug nuts off of this side. I'm going to go ahead and remove our other wheel, just get it all nice and open. And I'm going to do just one axle at a time. I don't want to drop both. But we're going to go ahead and we'll take our jack and place it under our axle, because the second we start removing these bolts, our axle is going to have nothing holding it up and it'll drop down on us. So make sure this is nice and tight. You want to go until it just barely starts to lift it up. We don't want to actually put any pressure on the bolts or anything else by lifting it up too much. But we can go ahead and start breaking loose our bolts now. It's not really going to matter which one we take out first. We're just going to go ahead and replace one at a time anyway. But to do this, we're going to need a 13/16 socket for our bolt head, and for our nut, we're going to need an 11/16. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my drill and just a breaker bar to kind of hold this in place. And we're gonna back those nuts off. And then we can go ahead and do our second shackle strap bolt, since we're replacing the straps as well. So as you can see with our old shackle straps, they were starting to get worn. They had the bolt kind of rolling around in here, and that's why it's all kind of wedged out like that, and you got metal actually sticking up out of it, like it kind of got sheared off a bit and pushed up. And that's what you're going to get when you have these thin shackle straps like this. So that's why it's really important to go ahead and upgrade to a newer kit with a much thicker shackle strap. You're not going to get all that play in it. This isn't going to bend like your little stock shackle straps will, and that's going to overall just help improve your suspension. If you look over at the bolts, they have that little hole right there, and that's going to go along with our Zerk fitting on the front here of our bolt head. And that's going to allow grease to come out and lubricate the bolts so that your whole suspension can easily slide back and forth as you're hitting potholes or just rough roads in general, and give you less road shock throughout your travel. So the next thing we're going to do is hammer out our bushings. We're going to go ahead and just use a flat punch. I find that's a little bit easier. Kind of take up the corners. Get it to where you can kind of get under it. Makes it kind of easier to push out. As you can see, these nylon bushings just kind of fall apart. I mean, even before I started hammering on it, I mean, this one looks like it's completely worn away. So that's not going to give you any help. A lot of the greases that you'll also use to lubricate your bolts are going to end up actually eating these nylon bushings, so that's why it's great to swap it over to a bronze bushing instead, so you don't have that issue. So as you can see, this is our old nylon bushing. I mean, we did beat it up a bit trying to get it out, but at the same time, this thing was already kind of wearing away and disintegrating over time just from the elements and the grease that's used. So when you swap out for these bronze bushings, you won't have that issue. It's going to stay there. It's not going to disintegrate like your old nylon ones will, and it's going to make sure that your shackle bolt or your shackle straps and your wet bolts can easily move along as you lubricate them. So now we're going to go ahead and hammer in our new bronze bushings, and to do that, I'm going to go ahead and take that old flat-headed bolt that we had in here before. I'm going to place my bushing on that. I'm going to push this up on here. That way while I'm hammering this in, it's not going to be putting a ton of stress on the edge here and bending it up. And it goes in nice and easy, and we can easily pull the bolt right back out. We'll go ahead and do the same thing to our other hole right here. We'll take our shackle strap and two bolts that came in our kit, and we'll slide those into place. We're going to make sure that we have our grease Zerk fittings on the outside so that it's real easy to grease our fittings. We don't want to place it on the inside and then have to fight and get under here. So I just wanted to give you one more little look at this. You can see just how worn away that strap is there. You can see the space that we have showing on our new shackle strap, just how out of whack that was. And then just a little side display to show you just how thick this is. This is almost 3 times thicker than our factory shackle straps. All right, now we can go ahead and put on our shackle strap. And we're gonna hand tighten our nuts for right now. We're gonna come back and torque all of these down at the same time. So put that on. And now we can move on to our next bolt. So now we're going to go ahead, I'm going to remove my bolt that holds my equalizer up into the frame here. This one's going to be a little bit harder to take off, so we're going to sit back here and hammer that one out. So I'm going to get under the trailer real quick.
I've got it out part of the way. I'm going to go ahead and use my hole punch again and hammer it out. And now we can kind of get this out of the way. I'm going to end up lowering my axle over here just to kind of get it down enough so that we can hammer out that bushing that's in there and replace it with our new bronze ones.
So I popped off my shackle strap just to get a better look at this, just because this side's really sticking on me, so I couldn't really get it down enough. But on this specific equalizer, it does not use a bushing. It already has grease fittings on it to grease it itself, and you're only going to be able to get the bolt through So on this specific one, we will not use that bronze bushing, but we can hang on to that. Your equalizer may vary, especially if you just have a standard one without the rubber dampener in it. So I'm gonna go ahead and place this back up, put our shackle strap and bolt back in, and we will push in our bolt. And as you can see, there's these teeth right here. Those are gonna grip into the actual hanger or into a shackle strap, and that's what's gonna kind of bite down and keep it from turning at all. So we'll get this pushed through once we get lined up. And with it in, now we're gonna have to hammer this in. And to do that, we're gonna wanna use one of our sockets. And then we're going to use the back side of it over the grease Zerk fitting. That way we're not hammering on the fitting. We don't want to damage that at all, but we do need to get those teeth to sink into our hanger here. So now we can go ahead and hammer it. And we got a bit more to go. So as you can see, we have our bolt head touching up against our hanger now. So we can go ahead and take our nut and we will hand tighten that on. Now with that hand tightened on, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna move to the front of our axle here, and we'll get that other bolt out of the way, and then we can switch over to our other leaf spring. So just like before, we're gonna go ahead and break off our nut. Like I said, you don't wanna put any pressure up on the bolt itself because those teeth are gonna end up chewing up your hanger, and then it'll make it loose later on when we go to put our new one in. So because it has those teeth, it's not going to want to easily slide out. We're going to have to hammer it out again. And we're going to make sure that our jack is in place on our axle. So with me moving the shackle straps around and the equalizer, our axle moved just a little bit. So I went ahead and repositioned my jack and have it fitting right exactly where I need it to be, so that when I knock out this bolt, I don't have it come falling down on me. So let's go ahead and we'll knock this out the rest of the way with our hole punch. And then we can lower this down just a bit so that we can get to our bushing. And we'll take our hole punch again and our hammer and just work that right out. So with my bushing out, now I'm going to go ahead and put my new one in. I'm going to use that bolt trick again just to get it in place. Pull it out, and then we can jack our axle back up. Just pull a little bit this way. There we go. And up a little bit more. And we can slide our new wet bolt in. And we'll do the same thing that we did with that equalizer bolt. We're going to have to hammer it in so that those teeth bite into our hanger. Now that we have this hammered down all the way, we can go ahead and hand tighten this on. And we can go ahead and do the same thing to our other axles. So now that we have the shackle straps, our hanger bolt, and our equalizer bolt all done, we're going to go ahead and start doing all of our other shackle straps and hanger bolts on all of our other axles. So now that we have our hardware all in, we're going to go ahead and torque down our bolts. We're going to use our 13/16 socket out on the front of the bolt head here to hold it in place because we don't want that spinning around in our shackle. And we're going to go ahead and use our 11/16 and torque it down to the specifications that are listed in your owner's manual that will come with it. All right, we're up to that. Now we can go ahead and we'll start going around to all of our other nuts here. So now that all of our wet bolts are torqued down, we're going to go ahead and grease them up. We'll just pop our grease gun onto our Zerk fitting right there. And start loading it up. As you can see, it started popping out on the side of our shackle there. That's how you know it's filled up. Going to our next one. And popping out there. And we'll just keep moving along until each of our wet bolts is properly lubricated. So now that we have all of our suspension lubed up, I'm going to go ahead and put our tires on, and that will complete our installation. Well, I think that about does it for today's installation of the MORryde suspension upgrade kit with 2 1/4 inch shackle straps here on our 2018 Shasta Phoenix Fifth Wheel trailer. My name's Kevin. Thanks for watching.